Hey everybody and welcome to Entering Scale Models. I'm Jason, your host, and I do models. I'm just setting the stream up here, making sure everything is working the way I need it to work. Let me just see here. I'm just checking out and making sure everything works the way I need it to. Okay. Okay, let me just send that. Okay, so now I can get this back up here. There's my chat. Okay, nobody's in here yet, so I am going to wait a minute and see if anybody shows up. We're going to be talking about some trace repair and looking at some stuff I got. I know I said I wasn't streaming anything and I was going to stream some Borderlands and stuff, but I can't get audio on my capture cards. They are strictly video only, and so that is a bust. So I'm just playing with my son in the morning. It's a little bit later in the day than I'm normally out here because I was gaming in the morning. So, but I have some stuff I want to go over. I have a pencil I don't need, and I have some stuff here that we can take a look at. And I want to talk about that trace repair job I have and some other things I got for the big repair stream on November 30th, in a week from tomorrow. So that's November 30th is my birthday, and I am doing a stream on the birthday. I'm going to try to make it as long as possible. I'm going to put my knee on the heating pad and try to get it as long a stream as possible. But here's the deal on what this stream is about. I have a Nintendo Switch that needs some trace repair, and I have gotten some different wire in, and it all looked a little, well, off, to be honest with you. It looked too small, and then what I had in the actual house was too small. So I got some different stuff, so I want to go over that here. Before I go showing it and getting people's opinions, I'm going to get a couple more people in. But here is a Nintendo Switch that I have done work on. This one has had P13 replaced, M92 replaced, BQ replaced. I even believe the fuse was replaced. Still not working properly, but I ran it through the ultrasonic cleaner because it was getting pretty nasty. And I do not have an expensive ultrasonic cleaner. It was maybe $30 on Amazon, and yeah, maybe it was $30 on Amazon. So Matt's dirty. That irritates me. Let me just clean this mat off real quick. Okay, so there we go. So I got my mat here. So I cleaned this switch in the ultrasonic cleaner, and it had flux and nastiness all around M92. That looks a lot better. The flux and stuff around BQ, it's got a little bit of fluffiness, and you can see my connector there is a little bit melted from work on this capacitor down here. But if you look at the back of P13, it looks better cleaned. Now I just used alcohol in my ultrasonic cleaner. A little bit of goop here that didn't come off, but I was just testing the ultrasonic cleaner to see how it did with the flux that I use. It does. The label got a little bit damaged, but that's okay. It was expected. I was expecting the label to come off, but it worked out pretty well. So that is that ran through the ultrasonic cleaner. So that's been tested and that works. I've used it for other things like 3D prints and things like that. So, and what else? Okay, that's the one that needs the trace repair. So let's talk about some something that I got in here. Let me just check something real quick. Okay, so let's see here. So here's the trace repair. Let's just look at what I have to do. And if you want to see someone do this professionally, it is Phil from the Coder. That's the COD3R, the Coder. But here is the location that needs the repair. Right here. Let me see if I can zoom down on that. This is about the best I can get zoomed unless I do some serious adjustment with my arm. I actually have it further out than I need it, but as you can see here, this trace right here is damaged. So I need to run a jumper from there to there, and I'm going to pull this filter first, most likely, and run a trace. Well, the problem was the trace wire, the smallest trace wire I've ever dealt with in any kind of trace repair, and it was pin to pin, was this 28 gauge, 29 gauge stuff here. So we have different gauges here in America. We don't use the metric system, which disappoints me. And I'll just cut a little piece of this off here so we can see what it looks like. I have a lifetime supply of this stuff, so that way it doesn't get all unruly. So, hey Liam, how's it going? Oh, yeah, that would help if I flicked over to the microscope. Wow. Oh, no. There we go. So, yeah, I'm sorry about that. So that is the trace repair. I will show you the clean board on the ultrasonic. So here's what my ultrasonic, this chip was changed, and the ultrasonic cleaner cleaned everything. This chip was changed, that capacitor there, and then also P13 was changed on here. So that ultrasonic cleaner did a pretty good job. It cleaned the board pretty good. So, and it, like I said, it's just a cheap ultrasonic cleaner that's big enough for a switchboard, and that's about it. But when it comes to this trace repair, I watched, like I said, Phil from the Coder do it, and I have 29 gauge wire. This is the smallest I've ever worked with. That's the size of it. It is probably the size of the pad itself. You know, the diameter is the same width as the pad, and I feel that it's too thick because the QFN chip will sit too high. Now I don't know if I can bend this up so you can see the actual diameter of it here. Let me see if I can show you the actual diameter and focus here. So there's the actual diameter of the wire right there. So it's pretty thick. I'll show you on the calipers what it is actually. So it is 0.32 millimeters, so 0.3 millimeters, and that's a little big. The Coder, he was using 0.1 millimeter, and unless I order from overseas, I'm stuck with the American wire gauge in order to get it in a timely fashion. So this is what I had. I have rolls of this, and I have rolls bigger in 29, but that's too big. So what I did was I ordered 30, 32, 34, and 36 gauge wire. Not just for this trace repair. I plan on doing some stuff with coils, for examples with coils and stuff. So the 30 gauge hasn't shown up yet, but I'm going to show you the 32 gauge. And when I got this stuff, when I looked at the 36 gauge, hey Zach, how's it going? Hey Phil. When I looked at the 32 gauge, the 36 gauge, I thought it was way too small. I thought it was like a human hair, and it was way too small. But talking to Phil the Coder again, he said that's what you need. So this is the 32 gauge wire here. Let me just cut a piece of that off. and we'll take a look at that. So this is the 32 gauge. So that's the 32 gauge. Let's look at the diameter of it here. So that's the diameter of it there. So that is the 32 gauge wire. And this is actually, yeah, that first one, yeah, definitely, that's why I ordered more. But in this 32 is 0.21 millimeters. So 0.2 millimeters on the 32 gauge. So that's 0.1 millimeter bigger than what Phil used. And honestly, it looks like it would be good, but it looks a little big too. It looks a little thick, like the chip would ride high. So that's the 32. And I know the 30 is going to be too big because, and I thought the 32 would be perfect. But let's take a look at the 34 gauge. And this is what got me, because it's hard to see the wire and how strong it is on a stream. It's hard to determine. So this is 34 gauge. It has a diameter of 0.17, so 0.17 millimeter. And I have a feeling that this may work instead of having to go with the super tiny stuff. But we'll see. So this is 34 gauge. Take a look at it under the scope here. And if we look at it on the trace itself, that doesn't look too bad. So let's take a look at the cross-sectional area of it. So if you look at the cross-sectional area of it, it doesn't look too thick. It looks like it would sit down in the pad, and the QFN would sit down on it. So that is the 34 gauge wire. So this one is a contender. I think the 34 gauge may work, and it has a little bit of rigidity to it. Like when you move it, it holds its shape pretty good. And I could tin the whole thing like Phil did and use the conformal coating. That's what I plan on doing. But this one is just a little bit more rigid than the next one. So that is 34 gauge. So keep that in mind on what you think. So the pad is, yeah, I'm going to take that pad out. So the wire sits flatter in there. I don't want to do any work on it unless it's on a stream, because I want to do it live for the first time. I want to be prepared and have a wire picked out that will work. So this is the 36 gauge wire. This is the smallest wire, and it is 0.12 wire. And Phil, if you are repairing traces with this teeny tiny piece of wire, you are crazy, and you are a machine. Let's put it that way. Because this stuff is tiny, and when I saw it, I was like, there's no way that that's the right wire. But looking at your video again, that looks about right. So that is the 36 gauge, 0.1 millimeter, and that looks like if I put that there and I sit the filter on it, the filter will sit on it with no issues, and the chip should fit on it with no issues. Man, I can't even pick this thing up. This is insanely small. So yeah, so it looks like it's a toss-up between this 36 gauge and this 34 gauge. So there's the two wires. Under the scope, they look like two totally different, a lot bigger than the other. Um, so use the 30 as closest. Yeah, it's exactly what you use, Phil. Um, but there's both of them side by side. I'm getting this weird artifacting on my USB video, and it's weird. Ever since I hooked that game console up to it yesterday, that capture card acts weird now. I don't understand it. It keeps flashing like stuff across it. But that's the two. So I'm probably going to use. I mean, this one right here is only a half a millimeter, or 0.05 millimeters difference in size. But I know that chip has to sit perfectly flush, otherwise this pad's not going to make contact. So I think it's down to this tiny little 36 gauge wire, which technically is already cut to length. Well, not perfect length, but I could just use what I pulled off. So that's sticking to my... So I know I said I was taking the week off, but I was getting antsy with nothing to do. So I got this wire in. I was going to unbox all this on the 30th stream, but I couldn't do it. I had to, stuff came in and I had to take a look at it. So that is the wire we're going to use for that. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna pull. I'm not doing it today, Phil. I told you I'm doing it on the 30th. Yeah, like I said, I've done trace repair, but I've done trace repair with wire that big. So, yeah, I've done it with wire this big. So, yeah, I'm not sure. This is, that's what I had this 29 gauge wire for, and that was normally pin to pin trace repair, or trace repair that was like a long run and there was a spot corroded out and I just had to lay the wire across the track. So this will be the first time doing anything this small. So I'm kind of curious on how that's all going to go out. This is my soldering tip, so that's going to be fun. It's about the right size. So, should be able to tack that down. I'll tin the whole wire first with a larger tip. So, yeah. And then I got some of this stuff to try for the channel. This was $5. It is a 274 solder. It is a REM alloy 4.5. It is a removal alloy for SMD work. It's like a super cheap low melt solder. And I have proper low melt solder, guys. It's fine. I'm going to use. Yeah, really, Zach. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be tough. That stuff is so flimsy, but the way Phil did it, he made it look so easy. So we're going to do it. We're going to tack it down with the solder mask first. I have some super tiny needles for that. So yeah, so I got this low melt solder to try. We're going to try it out on maybe a USB port or something. I don't know, just to mess around with it. I might do a test on some through-hole components, but this is $5 and you get 6.5 feet, or 4.5 feet and 6.5 inch links in a little container. It's probably not going to be good, but I'm going to try it. And then I also got 2 of these beetles. For the traffic light project. If you follow my traffic light project, this is I'll show it under the scope so you can read it. This is a Atmel chip Mega 32U4. If you're programming these, this is for the Leonardo board. This is technically a Leonardo board, and you have you have a lot more pins. You have your analog input, and you have your digital. And then you have 3.3 volts if you need it. So yeah, this is an Mega 32U4 chip. This is for the traffic lights project. So I plan on just plugging these into a power module and programming them for different parts of the project. The last board I used with the at Tiny 84 or 85, I was having some issues with that. So programming that, this one, the board should be easier to program. That one, it was more like you flash the board, and that was quite irritating, and it never seemed to work. So I got that. I also got this in. This is weird. I don't remember ordering this. This is a roll of thermal tape. Yeah, it's gonna take practice, but you know that's what I'm learning. That's why I'm learning. This is thermal tape. It's weird. Basically, it's a thermal thermal pad on a roll, and from what I can remember from the thing, you can stack this up to make a thicker thermal pad. So I got it for something, for some power supply I was making, to make a better connection to the heatsink, because the heatsink was had some kind of coating on it that wasn't going to give me the best heat transfer. So for the MOSFET, I'm going to stick some of that stuff on there and then screw the MOSFET on instead of using heatsink compound, just to try it. I just want to try this stuff to see if it is any good for that, if it does have any kind of thermal transfer. So I have that. Hold on a second. Donovan, can you get my drink, please?
What?
Get my drink, please. It's on the counter somewhere. I forgot my drink when I came out here. So there's that back. And that's all I got in so far. The AliExpress stuff has not showed up yet, and my digital tweezers haven't showed up yet. So I can check real quick on the tweezers and see where they are. Not that. Oh, it's over here. Thank you, buddy. Alright. No, they're still not. They're still not out for delivery, or they went to New Jersey they left New Jersey on the 16th of November, and it's like an 8 or 9 hour drive from New Jersey to Orlando, maybe 10. It could be a little bit longer, but that was 7 days ago. So 7 days ago it left New Jersey. It arrived in Orlando, which is like 15 minutes down the street. And 3 days ago it arrived in Orlando. So it is taking forever for the tweezers to show up. So, yeah. So I don't know. Hopefully they make it here. If I don't get my deliveries, if I don't get my stuff by Tuesday of this week, tomorrow, then I probably won't get anything until after our holiday. Because a lot of places slow down for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and there is no mail on Thursday, and they get backed up, so it tends to back up pretty bad. I live on the outskirts of Orlando. I say Orlando because people don't know. If I say where I live, people don't know where it is. But I can get to Orlando in 15 minutes. I can't get to Disney in 15 minutes. It takes 45 with traffic to get to Disney. I don't go to Disney, but I know how far it is because I've done work down there before. Orlando's pretty big, and a lot of people don't get this, but Orlando is associated with Disney, but technically the property Disney's on is in Kissimmee, which is adjacent to Orlando, but it is technically in Kissimmee, geographically, but Orlando is where the airport is, so Orlando is where the airport is, so they say, it's like 30 minutes from the airport, so everybody says Orlando. because it's easier, I guess, than Kissimmee. But technically, geographically, the property is actually in Kissimmee, but everybody calls it Orlando. So, and Kissimmee's a little bit further for us. So I'm north of Orlando. So yeah, I stopped correcting people on the Orlando Kissimmee thing because nobody seems to care. So that's basically that. So yeah, the ultrasonic cleaner, I was surprised on how well that $30 cleaner cleaned that board, because that had a bunch of nasty flux on it for a long time. So, and it's that super tacky flux that I use. But now that I have a direction on what wire to use, I am going to use that, and then let me show you something. Let me get in here. Thank you. I have, is it these? Maybe these. Maybe these. Okay. Alright. So I have two things of this solder mask here. I have a green and a blue, and then I have this 4-pack here that is green, red, yellow, and black. I have way too much solder mask. I ordered this because it was supposedly came with a good light, and it was like $11. So I ordered this 4-pack, and then this didn't show up for like 2 or 3 weeks, so I snagged this from my old job. So this is from my old job, and this is what I got. This is what I ordered. So I have more solder mask than I need ever in a lifetime. But what I use for dispensing super glue in scale modeling, and it comes in super handy, are these tips here. Here's my 30 gauge tip. This is the tip I use for dispensing glue, and it's still a little big, but as you can see there, that is the tip, that the smallest tip. I'm not going to get it in the shot here, am I? There we go. You can see how small that is for dispensing solder mask. It is tiny. If you look at it, next to a filter here. If you look to it next to a filter, if I'm going to put it on that jumper wire, I think that this is going to be a good level, a good size to use it. I have tons of different sizes. This is 30. I used to have smaller. I used to have a box of 36, but the 36 is what I used the most for super glue on photo etch. So these are basically, you use them once, and then once you're done building for that day, it's pretty much shot. You can't reuse them again. Sometimes you can heat up the tip with a lighter and burn out the super glue, but on the super thin 36 gauge ones, which are just like a hypodermic needle, sometimes smaller, they're pretty much one-time use. So, but these are, I go through these. These are the 3 sizes I use: 25, 20. If you just need like a little bit of flux, I mean, these 20 gauges would be good for flux. See how small that is. If you just want the exact amount, I mean, that would even work for solder mask and things like that. Glue for models. I'm planning to glue 2 separate 3D prints, but someone said glue used for models. Yeah, glue used for models is not the glue for gluing 3D parts. Okay, I will give you some recommendations right now on what I recommend. Now, these are my recommendations, but I come from an engineering and machining background, so the glues I recommend are very durable. And if it's a super glue, it has a adequate shock value. And if you don't know what shock value is with super glue was originally designed to be super, super strong, but if it received a shock, it would crystallize, the crystals would break, and it would come apart. And why that is useful is if you have a machine and you need to machine something and you don't want to manufacture a fixture, you could take your metal block and clean off the metal table of your vise or your actual table on the machine, and you could super glue the block down and then touch it off to find your center, and then you could machine the part, and then you would just lightly tap the side of it with a hammer and it would pop right off, and then you use a little bit of acetone to clean off the used glue. Hey Phil, how's it going? Hey RB, how you doing? So when I recommend super glue, I recommend an industrial super glue that is extremely strong, but it does have that shock value. It's not going to break if you drop it, but it does have a shock value. But here is what I use, and then I'll also show you what I use for gluing together the PLA. So this is a product called Starbond. This is, once I found this is all I used to use. I used to use 3M Scotch Weld, but I refuse to support 3M as a company. But this is Starbond. They have, this is black medium thick. It's reinforced with rubber. So it's extra durable, and it does give you a little bit more rigidity if it is dropped or bumped or things like that, because the rubber kind of bulks the glue up. Unfortunately, because it is infused with rubber, it only comes in black. But some people like black. And then this is the Starbond thick. They make a thin, they make a medium thick, they make a medium. My wife actually uses the medium to glue her fake nails on because they don't come off. They could stay on for a month and not come off, but when she's ready to take them off, they just pop right off. So no soaking them, no chemicals or nothing. She just basically glues them on, they stay on for a month, and then when she's time to take them off, she just pops them, which is that shock value. She just shocks the nail and they pop off like no problem at all, no issues. We've tried other glues like Gorilla Glue and things like that. I don't like Gorilla Glue because it doesn't have a high shock value. It has a very low shock value. But if you are going to go the super glue route for 3D prints, I would recommend Starbond. It is a very good company. It's not that bad a priced. And actually, if you buy a kit, it comes with extra nozzles. It comes with tips. They're actually nice little kits. You can actually get the stuff on Amazon now. I used to buy it at work in giant bottles of this stuff, and we would get like 10 or 15 of these little bottles and we would fill them up. But if you're going to glue, if you want a stronger, more durable glue, you can go with a epoxy. This happens to be 15-minute epoxy because that's what I like to use. I like 15-minute epoxy. You can get 5-minute epoxy, you can get 24-hour epoxy, 30-minute epoxy. I will tell you, the longer epoxy cures, the longer the cure rate in epoxy, the stronger it will be. So a 15-minute cure rate time will cure stronger than a 5-minute cure time. So that's 15 minutes isn't that bad. If it's something I have to hold together, I will switch to my 5-minute stuff. But this is what is on hand. But probably what you were thinking of is like this model glue here. This is Tamiya extra thin model cement. This would not work on PLA. This works basically only on styrene. Actually, yeah, I'm thinking it is only styrene. I have some weld-on that works on other stuff, but I'm pretty sure that the Tamiya only works on the styrene stuff. So, but yeah, that's model glue. I wouldn't recommend that. I don't think it would work at all. And if it did make it gooey and stick, I think it would mess up the print more than anything. But I would go with the Starbond stuff. Now, what I have done in the past, with PLA 3D prints. I don't do PLA 3D prints anymore. I do resin prints. I use the Starbond Thin, and apparently I must be out because I don't see my bottle in my glue rack. And I would, where the lines join together, if you get like a little bit, sometimes when you do big prints, the print line will not be perfect together. You'll see that little, you'll see the ridge of the print line not connecting, but not fully on there. And what I would do is I would run a little bit of the thin in those cracks, and then actually, if I was going to paint the unit, I would fill it with the thick stuff and then sand it back. So anytime there was like a crack or anything, I would fill it. I would first run the thin anywhere I think it would be weak, and then I would put the thick on there and then just lightly sand it back, because this stuff can be sanded and worked once it's cured. Once it's cured, after it's fully dried, it can be worked. You can also use an activator to activate it quicker. I do use the activator, but I don't recommend it unless you have to have it. Unless you need an activator, use an activator. But don't use an activator just for the sake of using an activator. I do not recommend that. It speeds up the curing process, and that does weaken the glue bonds. But like I said, sometimes you need an activator. I mean, depending on what you're doing, the stuff needs to dry. So if you need an activator, use an activator. If you don't need an activator, don't use one for the sake of using one. I always recommend that with super glue. So yeah, for glue, that's what I recommend. So yeah, I love that stuff. And when I say that I tested many glues in an industrial environment, that is the best one. Well, I'm talking probably at least 30 different industrial grade super glues, and some even stuff you can't even buy without being in the industry, the machining industry. And the Starbond outperformed every one of them. Depending on what you think cheap is, in an industrial setting, it is a very good price. For industrial machining and stuff, it is a very good price. Compared to dollar store super glue, it's not a good price at all. So, it is a little bit cheaper now, and you can get the smaller things, but the big, giant bottles that we used to buy are ridiculously expensive. So, but you can get it on Amazon, Zag, if you have Amazon where you live. I think you said you were in Poland. So, I don't know if you guys, I don't know who has Amazon. I really don't know anything. So, well, that is going to wrap it up. I just needed to know what wire to prepare to use so I could pack the rest of this stuff away. And then I'm also going to do a video on coils, making your own coils and what you can do with coils. So we're going to have some fun. And I'm also going to make a transformer. Or attempt to anyways. A little switching DC thing. Maybe. Because I have the different gauge wires, so I could roll one in a thicker gauge and roll the other one in a thinner gauge and more windings. I don't know. We'll mess around with it. I haven't done it in a while, so we'll see. Yeah, no problem, Zach. We'll see what fun we have. I didn't mind ordering it. I always use magnet wire for different things. So this, believe it or not, was full. It was out to here. There was probably like 2 or 3 millimeters in that this was full, and I've used that much for different things. A little Christmas present thing that I made with a coil and an LED for people. So just a little fun gift. I did that a couple years ago. Made a lot of my own homemade coils. So, but that's gonna do it for this, guys. I'm still taking the week off. I just wanted, I was getting antsy, and I wanted to know what you guys recommended for the wire. So I'm gonna go with the 36 gauge, the 0.1 millimeter. And see how that works out. I may mess around with some other stuff next time, but this switch was 100% working, and I want to make sure it 100% works again. So the only thing wrong with this switch was it wouldn't dock because of that blown trace and the blown filter. So I'm hoping that once I fix that one line, this thing will work 100%. So, but that's going to do it. Thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you, RB, Zach, Philip, Liam, Phil. Thank you guys so much. Anybody's watching, not in the chat, thank you. And if you rewatch this, guys, thanks for watching. And I hope everybody has a fantastic day.